NeuroFlow is a veteran-founded healthcare technology and analytics company providing military and government organizations with real-time, individual, and population-level health insights in order to increase individual effectiveness, readiness, and overall wellness. As the leading military-grade behavioral health solution in the market, NeuroFlow is actively working with the U.S. Air Force across multiple sites to enhance and scale the care delivered by administrators and medical personnel while empowering airmen to manage their own mental health and build resilience for peak performance. To learn more, visit www.neuroflow.com. All right, hello, my name is Leah Day, and this is Veteran Trash Talk Female Warrior Edition. I'm so excited to bring one of my favorite humans onto this podcast. This is one of my very first episodes. But before I introduce Soraya, I want to tell you a story because I'm talking to you, female warriors. When I came across Soraya on Instagram a couple years ago, I really wanted to hate her. I wanted to hate her because I'm a veteran and I saw that she was active duty. I saw she was an officer, beautiful, put together. By the way, she was completely in regulation and uniform, and I hated that about her too because she was so pretty. And here she was promoting a business on Instagram, and I thought, well, of course she's successful in this because she has all the time in the world with her real job in the Army, probably just sitting around doing nothing. And I tell you that story because we as women in the military are so pulled apart. We're pulled apart. You know, there's this diversity between us and the men. And then there's a diversity between the good ones and the bad ones. And we always assume the worst in the other females because of experiences that we personally share. So what I want to share with you today is that, number one, it's important to identify that within ourselves and be willing to be open and heal. And the other thing is that other women in the military really are pretty badass, where they can be. And Soraya is such a thing. So Soraya Goddard, I'm so excited to have you on this podcast. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm just going to introduce you quickly.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So Soraya, like I said, is active duty military. She's in the Army. She's an officer. She is kicking butt and taking names. I'll let her tell that part of the story. But also the way that I came across Soraya is because she is running different streams of income. She has a home business, she has a coaching business, she has a podcast. I want to get into all of that. But Soraya, first, I want to know more about you and the military side. So take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Leah. That was a fabulous introduction, and I think a really important topic that I hope we can dive into. I'm Soraya Goddard. I got into the military. I grew up in California. No military family or background, and the very short version is I wasn't good enough to play sports in college and was looking for something, and someone recommended that I join ROTC. I had no idea what that was, and they basically offered me a scholarship right on the spot, and I was like, sure, I'll try this out and see if I liked it. It took about 2 weeks for me to realize that these were my people and that I was surrounded by a group of men and women that were type A, goal-oriented, team-focused, smart, open to travel, adventure. Like, these were just people that I loved, and did 4 years of ROTC, commissioned thinking that I was going to do 4 years and get out and move back to San Francisco where I was raised. And it has now been almost 21 years since that day, and I still really enjoy it. There are obviously challenges that come with any career, let alone a military career. But I was commissioned in 2000. So for those of you, who have been in the Army around that time, you know that May of 2000 when I was commissioned was very different than a year and a half later. And so got on the deployment train, did Afghanistan, Iraq, all of that, and just I found purpose. I found people, I found family, I found a little bit of everything. Adversity, adventure, you name it. And so here I am. So I'm actually sitting in San Antonio, Texas, where I'm stationed now, and have done company command, battalion command, all that good stuff, and just really feel fortunate that I found a career that has let me grow And then, I understand also that there's an exit plan that's required and that you can't stay in the military forever. So yeah, started building a business on the side just to give myself something to look forward to, financially and really in that fulfillment sense as well in the future. So that's kind of 24 years condensed into a couple minutes.
That's awesome. So you're at 21 years. Do you have a plan on when that exit strategy will take place?
Uh, Nothing solid. No. I mean, anyone who's been in the military understands that there are decision points that come along. I just got picked up for '06, so I'll pin on '06 at the end of this year, which normally people say, well, you've got to stay 3 more years to retire at the rank of '06. But to be honest, I don't really feel pressure for any of that. So we'll see. As long
Because
as
of your
I'm
exit.
continuing to enjoy it. That's
Yeah.
really I mean, no joke, that's kind of a flippant answer, but it really is. As long as I am fulfilled and really enjoying it, I can stay and I can walk at any time too. So it's a good position to be in.
Yeah, most definitely. And thank you for sharing that. And congratulations. It's amazing. It's
Thank you.
amazing. I
Thank
feel
you.
like that's definitely not a place a lot of females reach. So that's pretty awesome. You're inspiring in a lot of ways. So let's flip it a little bit. I know that you've had a great career and you feel very fortunate. I love that you are enjoying it. But I want to know some of the struggles that you've had as a female. I know it's very different because I was enlisted, and so it's a whole like different world, and we just have kind of a wall between us a lot of times because we're not supposed to talk about that stuff. But tell me some challenges that you have had to overcome just being a female in the military and being kind of in a man's world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't, having never been enlisted, I can't speak on anyone's behalf. Um, but I think there are common themes to all of our challenges in the military in general. So when I was commissioned, my first duty station was in the 25th Infantry Division, Traffic Lightning, and I was fortunate enough to stay there for almost 10 years with 3 deployments, 7 CTC rotations, you name it. I was basically gone all the time. Um, and when I wasn't gone, I was in Hawaii, so that was the payoff. That was the positive side. Uh, Being a female in an infantry division is a blast and also excruciatingly tough. I think the thing that I had as an advantage is not knowing the alternative. I didn't know anything else. I hadn't been stationed anywhere else. I didn't know what to compare it to. And I was, young and hungry and fit and just wanting to run through brick walls and do everything that I could and soak up everything. And I found that time after time after time, I don't know that anyone was, there were a couple instances where people were overtly not happy about me being competent and, aggressive and fit and performing well. But for the most part, I just found that people had inherent biases against women, particularly women serving in infantry divisions. I'm old enough, hopefully some listeners will understand this, but I'm old enough that I served in the DISCOM, the Division Support Command, which was basically they took all the support people and put them in one brigade, and we would have to split off to go support infantry battalions. And so I was a platoon leader, and I'd show up with like a element of my platoon, and people would laugh at me or tell me, hey, you guys didn't have a male platoon leader to send. And so I grew up thinking that I had to outperform everybody's expectations. I was already type A, I was already driven, but then you add on that the pressure of me really feeling like I had to prove myself in every situation. And I fell into that trap for many years, and it has taken like literally therapy and a lot of coaching to undo the idea that I have to prove myself to other people. It's something that's just long lasting. In the very, like a story, I think the worst and most egregious example of someone really showing their colors to me in a way that I didn't realize existed was I was interviewing to be a company commander. And so your brigade commander gets to basically choose the company commander. So I marched my butt in there, and I had been waiting for like 2 years in this unit. I was the battalion S4. I had been waiting for 2 years to interview for this company command that I wanted more than anything in the world. And I walked into his office, and I nailed everything that he had asked me. And then at the end, he said, tell me why. This was, by the way, in a Stryker brigade combat team.
I'm very familiar with them, by the way.
And yeah, so I mean, I thought like, this is it for me. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. This is my dream job. I am so excited. And at the end of a very short little discussion with him, he says, basically, tell me why I should hire you. And I was a little taken aback. And I said, sir, can you know, what exactly do you mean? And he said, look, I've got 10 qualified men right down the street. What makes you think that you can do a better job? We're deploying to Iraq. It was like 8 months later we were going to deploy. And he says, he's like, I need the best possible. Basically insinuating that I was less than, and that I was not as competent as my male counterparts, and that I didn't have the skills that they did. And I looked at him straight in the face and I said, sir, I'm the best. Whether you choose to believe that or not, that's your problem. I literally said that. And he said, okay. And then I left. And then as soon as I left the office, I held it together until I got out of the building. And then I went to my car and just cried because I knew that I had screwed it up. I knew that I wasn't going to, you know, he wasn't going to choose me. I was also stunned that he told me that to my face. Now, again, this was some years ago. This was 2005. So thankfully, not everywhere, but the Army has evolved a little bit since then. And so even though that wasn't that long ago, I think right now, if you had someone on you know, paper saying that, they'd probably be fired. However, at that time, it actually all worked out. Apparently, he was impressed that I was sassy enough to say that to him. Conferred with my battalion commander at the time, who validated that he thought I was the best, and I got hired for the job. But then I had the situation where I was working for somebody who was my senior raider, who basically told me that I was less than. So then it threw me into the cycle again of having to prove myself and having to go overboard. And so this was a period in my career where I mean, I worked, I had to be, I basically told myself that I had to be more fit than other people, more competent than other people, work harder, work longer, work faster. And I did all that, but there was a cost, and a massive cost. My marriage at the time fell apart. My health fell apart. My stress levels were through the roof. And I didn't even realize that this was happening because I was so focused on being the best and proving myself. I left a trail of destruction that, again, I've had to kind of unwind, and I'm still unwinding all of that. So, you know, some of those things we don't even realize. I think rightfully so, military sexual trauma and a lot of negative things that have been a part of military culture are getting attention. However, hand in hand with that, I think needs to be a discussion of just those implicit biases and how we as women internalize those. So you get people who internalize biases and then add on top of that negative issues and situations, and it just becomes a really challenging situation. So thankfully, on a positive note, I've had a lot of support. I've matured a lot. I've had a lot of help. I've had therapy. I've had coaches, the whole thing. And so I've been able to kind of come to peace with that. But it's definitely been an uphill battle.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And I feel like I was in those rooms with you because of things that I experienced. But, you know, it's very, I definitely think that we need to bring more awareness to those things as well. The huge traumas are obviously very important, but it's those things that mess with our minds so much that we just, and not just women, but the men too, like we just kind of push it to the side thinking like, well, that's just weak, you know, take Motrin and drink some water and move on. And I think it's really important to identify those and get the help that is needed for that as well. I mean, sometimes we can't do it ourselves. So that's probably a good segue into how you found your network marketing company, correct? Is that how you found them?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I was desperate for, well, so continuing the story, I basically I got a divorce, and because my relationship had fallen apart because I was throwing everything into my work. And so I was in my mid 30s alone and thinking, like, basically overnight, all of my everything that I thought that I had worked for was out the window. And the only thing I still had left was my career. And so I came to a point where I was like, look, I've got to invest in me, and I've got to figure out who I am independent of the Army. I've got to figure out what lights me up besides my career. I had ignored all of that for years, which in retrospect sounds ridiculous, but it's very easy to do. And so I basically, I knew that my body was just destroyed from stress and overtraining and lack of sleep for 15 years, right? And so hired a functional diagnostic nutritionist. I went and started seeing a therapist. I mean, I did everything. I was like, give me all the help, from every possible angle. And along with that, in my kind of physical and emotional journey, I found some products that really helped me. They helped me sleep more. They helped me really, embrace emotion as a good thing, not, because the Army really teaches you to kind of like swallow all that
Right.
emotion. So things that help me sleep more, help me heal my hormones, which is a big thing. I think that's another thing that women don't talk about is that stress is just so destructive on your hormones. So anyways, I found some products that helped me with that, and I was using those products for about 2 years before somebody came and said, hey, did you know that there's a business opportunity attached to this? And my only frame of reference was like the Avon lady, or I think, I mean, like that's really the only thing I had. I'm like, so it's like Avon or something? Like you bring people over your house and sell stuff? And somehow in my mind, I thought that you could make like $50 doing it, or like $100. Like I had no concept that it was a profession and that people made lots of money doing this and you could support a family. And so she explained to me, hey, look, I was able to quit my Fortune 500 executive position at a big name tech company in order to do this. And I'm actually making more now. And instantly I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? I asked her a couple questions, and she said, look, I am making more money now than I was at my Fortune 500 company. And I was like, okay, I'm in. Like, I don't care what it takes. I don't know what I have to do, but I'm smart. I'm capable. I can learn what you do. Tell me what to do. And so that sent me off on a path. And thankfully, what's really cool about having been in the military and having been a leader, I came to that with 15 years of leadership experience. I know how to talk to people. I know how to be responsible. I know how to do things that are mundane that get results. Like those skills that the military teaches us, I was able to just slide those over into my business. Hasn't always been super easy. I wish it was. There's times just like anybody else that I'm like, why am I doing this? But I think really thinking about when you exit the military and having a plan is the best thing that we can do for ourselves. So for me, I've got this freedom now where, yeah, I'm still in the Army. There's things that I can't do because I'm still in the Army. But I know that the second I decide to leave, I have a paycheck, I have a business, I have all this stuff that I walk right into. So I don't have to go to the SFL tap things where they tell me, I don't have to go to the career fairs. I don't have to go to the job hiring things, which is just the most amazing sense of freedom. So I highly recommend it if anyone's watching who hasn't left the military, to figure out if there is a way that you can either do a home business or something on the side that can turn into a full-time job when you leave, because it is a blast.
Absolutely. And that being said, with you still being active duty, how many hours did you start off spending on that business initially? And then how has it changed?
Every single moment that I had to spare. I don't know how many that was, a lot. Um, I think for me, there was a difference in mindset about it to me, it wasn't about hours. I have no idea.
Mhm.
I spent every waking moment that I could pouring myself into my business. And so I was basically selling a product and introducing people to a product. But at the same time, I had enough wherewithal to know that I needed to build a personal brand and I needed to get my name out there and I needed to make it easier so that other people could find me and I didn't have to just constantly go searching for other people. So I did more than just the minimum, but I spent every waking moment for about 2 years really pouring myself into um, learning about marketing, figuring out social media, figuring out how to market myself on Instagram and not be super weird or spammy, figuring out how to talk to people where there isn't a command relationship, right? I'd been a commander a couple times over. So speaking to someone when you are able to tell them what to do with the knife hand is a little bit different than like basically developing long-term relationships and offering things. So there was still some things that I had to learn and interpersonal skills. But to answer your question, I mean, I would come home from work, from whatever I was doing. In fact, at the time I was actually working at the Pentagon. I would come home, I would get a quick workout in, I would shove some food in my face, army style, and then I would go to work until I was too exhausted to work anymore. I don't recommend that necessarily, but it works. Um, I mean, that's the truth. Like,
I
I
agree.
wish I could sit here going, oh, it only took me 2 hours a night and it was so easy. Like, it just
Well, I
wasn't.
think it's important
Um,
to know
but
the truth because you can go slow or go fast. I don't know why that's binging on me.
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. And to me, it was like it, I only had a couple years to make this work. And so I knew that if I wasn't going to make it work, I was going to have to go find another job when I got out of the army, whenever that may be. So I was super motivated. So yeah, I would stay up probably 4 or 5 hours and put in a good 4 or 5 hours worth of work. I will tell you though, hiring a coach is the best thing I ever did. I think just like anything in life, whether you're in the military or outside the military, having someone who's been there and done what you want to achieve, you've just got to hire a coach. If you don't, you can do it. You can absolutely still do it, but you just won't have the wisdom and the perspective. So um, yeah, I think right now, so I actually was building my business all through Battalion Command. It was absolute insanity. Again, I don't recommend that. It was a lot. I didn't sleep for a couple years, but I'm much wiser now. So in all seriousness, I understand when it's time to dial it back and I'm much more intentional with my family. I am now happily remarried and um, have a dog and, family and whatnot. So I can spot the signs of burnout. I can spot the signs of my ego talking and me just wanting to do more just to do more. Um, and I can stop myself now. So I think that's a learned skill that not everyone learns.
That's good. But then but you have a podcast of your own where you teach other network marketers who don't have to work with you,
Yeah.
right? It's one of the, is it, tell me,
Yep.
it's one of the top rated podcasts, yes?
It is. Yeah. It's a top rated podcast in the home business space. I'm super proud of that. So basically, I started this network marketing business where I'm showing people, products and a business opportunity. But in general, people started coming to me just naturally and organically saying, like, how are you building your business on Instagram? You don't have a huge amount of followers. How is this working out for you? And so I started by doing just some one-on-one coaching and quickly realized that I didn't have time to sustain that. And so I started a group coaching program, started some courses teaching people how to grow their own business on Instagram, and then eventually just started recording a podcast so that people could learn for free as well and get some little tips and lessons. So my podcast is basically a how-to and also documents my journey a little bit in how I'm doing basically how I'm building my business on social media. Social media, obviously, we're here in social media. It's such a powerful tool to get your message across. And particularly now, where none of us are really meeting in person anymore, conferences in person are just not a thing. The basis of our social network is all online right now, which has pros and cons. But I think for those people who really want to use social media to connect with people, it takes some learning. So anyways, I'm happy to
Right.
teach people how to do that.
Right. And I will say, like, so I started in a party plan company when I was still active duty, and I really had no clue. I mean, we had Facebook, but I don't think Instagram was a thing yet. And I didn't know how to talk to humans. Like, I was this staff sergeant that was like, "Wah, wah, wah, wah." And of course, you can't sell to people that you work with. So I really was at a loss of like, I don't know how to do this thing. So what advice would you give? Like, if anybody's listening in, then they're curious about starting a business, where would you guide them to start? And any advice to kind of calm their nerves about, hey, of course you're not going to be breaking any regulations, selling to people around you. If they see it and they want it, fine. But, there's a whole world out there. What advice can you give there?
Well, yeah, so the first advice is just practical in that before you do anything, I would consult your JAG. Your JAG's going to tell you it's fine, but I would do it anyway, just as a CYA. I did it. I actually hounded my SJA saying, hey, look, I want to make sure if I start selling stuff on social media, I'm not going to sell it at work, but if I start selling stuff on social media, that this is not going to break some rules. And he was like, you mean like selling makeup? Again, his frame of reference was
Right.
like, I think he asked me like Mary Kay or something. And I'm like, yeah, it's basically like that. He's like, oh yeah, you're fine. And I'm like, can I get that in writing? So I highly recommend that. Again, your SJA is going to tell you it's fine. They're probably going to laugh at you and shoo you away and say, yeah, everyone sells stuff online right now. But for me, that is the first thing that I would recommend to someone, because you want your command to know that as you increase your presence on social media, that there's a reason, and that you're not doing something crazy or that's not allowed. But on a little bit more practical level beyond that, I think what you said, Leah, about learning how to talk to humans, it is everything. That's really the skill set. Learning how to talk to humans is usually about storytelling, and storytelling is the way that we communicate value about things. So, if I tell you, I'm like, if I have a pen here, this is just a normal pen. But if I tell you a story about how this is a pen that my grandfather wrote, a love note to my grandmother on, and now they're both, deceased, and that this pen is my most favorite object, all of a sudden that story makes this thing much more valuable, right? Maybe to me, maybe not to you, but you get the idea. Storytelling is what takes an object and turns it into an experience. And so if there's someone who's looking to build a business, figure out what stories you have about your product or your business. They don't have to be big stories. They don't have to be about how you ended up becoming a millionaire overnight. Nobody wants to hear that anyway. Tell people stories about how you were able to sleep better at night, about how things reduced your stress level. Tell people stories about how you now feel a sense of relief that you have a business and a direction that you're going once you leave the military. Tell people stories about how you were up all night with your screaming toddler for 14 nights in a row, and you were able to find a product that helped you and your toddler both calm down and get some sleep. These are the things that are going to help you relate on a human to human level. It's network marketing really is not about sales in the traditional sense. Like, when you think sales, you think going to a car lot or something and having some guy use some crazy word techniques or linguistic programming to like sell you something. It's not all about that. If you try to do that, you're going to fail on your face, and then everybody's going to think you're weird. But if you connect with people and you share your story, people will be moved, and they may or may not buy your stuff, but that's really how you build a business. It's how many people can you talk to? How many people can you share stories with? How many people can you see if you can help? I think those of us in the military don't realize the amount of skill sets we have. And one of those skill sets is the thing that you honed while you were sitting in the barracks or sitting on a cot at the National Training Center, or like those skill sets of just sitting there and listening and joking and talking to people. That's what's going to build your business.
Right.
Crazy enough.
And I want to add to, I think what has been the most beneficial for me in my network marketing business has nothing to do with finances, but my own healing and personal development. when I got out of the military, I was
100%.
very angry and bitter. I hated people as a whole, and I thought that I was going to be successful in the industry not liking people. Well, that doesn't go very well, but I knew that I needed to heal, and I wasn't doing that for sales or to further my business. I just knew I needed that for me and for my family. And network marketing really has been that vehicle for me to do a lot of healing. Got a long way to go, but just being a totally different person than I was. So I love that about it. You gain so much from it. It's not just like going out and buying a franchise and now you've got all this debt and you're responsible for all these people and hopefully you make it. It really is personal development with a comp plan attached to it. So I love that aspect too. And then you can do just like what you've said earlier. I mean, you can make a little bit of extra money. You can make a lot of extra money depending on what your personal needs are. But I love that there is that for an exit strategy. And I definitely think it's important for us to get the word out because I think most people don't know about it, or they just kind of knock it over to the side like it's not really a serious thing, and it's just a lack of education. So I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story. If anybody wants to connect with Soraya through her business, her coaching business, her network marketing business, her podcast, you can go to sorayagoddard.com. Is there any other, that is correct, right? sorayagoddard.com?
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Through my website, I'm actually revamping my website. So, goodness to come in the next couple months on that as well. But Instagram is usually the easiest way to get a hold of me, just through an Instagram DM. I get to almost every single one of them that I get, usually within about a 24-hour period. So that's a great way to get a hold of me. But yeah, it's that I'm so glad that you brought that up. It's just the opportunity for people to find a family that is outside of the military is something that I see in network marketing that parallels our military experience. Whether you have a positive or negative experience in the military, you can't deny that there's teamwork there. And that teamwork can also be found in network marketing. I think I have so many friends who have either retired or gotten out of the military at certain points who say that the number one thing that they miss is the teamwork. And I'm like, kind of still I have that in my business as well. So I don't feel the sense of impending doom that when I leave the military, I'm going to miss out on that teamwork anymore. So I think it's awesome. But yes, everyone can connect with me on my website or on Instagram.
Perfect. All right. Well, Soraya, thank you so much for being here, being one of my first guests. I was nervous, but I'm excited to get your story out there. Do you have any final words before we say adieu?
I think this is the advice that I've been giving people in every walk of life, and because it has served me well. I would say, if there's something you want, don't ask for permission. Just go for it. Do it, and it may be hard, it may be a little challenging, but you will thank yourself when you're at the end of the road. So thank you so much for having me. You're an awesome podcast host, and I just really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Soraya, and thank all you listeners and watchers on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.